Whew, so cold. Hiya, welcome to my compound life. How are you? How's everyone? I hope you're well. It is the 20th of November and very cold in the UK. Very, very cold in the UK. It is almost 3 degrees Celsius in the United Kingdom, Birmingham to be precise. Where are we? Let me check. Okay, so thanks for coming along to ride with me. We're gonna go somewhere. Gonna go to the gym actually. Bitcoin. Where are we now right now? 91,700. Okay, that's actually not bad of a recovery in comparison to yesterday when it was high fear at around, what was yesterday, around 88,000. Yeah. Okay, so before we get started, let's do some rain check. How much inflow, how much outflow, etc. In terms of Bitcoin ETF flow, US only, excluding the you know what, I think this data can also entail UK ETPs too, because obviously it's coming from BlackRock, etc. But let me double check, right? But anyway, in terms of the flow, right? I mean, why do I keep on talking about inflows and outflows? I think it's a very good indicator for us to have an insight in terms of what people are doing in the market right now, right? Of course, the price action of Bitcoin would gives us a clear indication of whether people are buying or selling and so forth, right? But for now, if we simply just look at Bitcoin ETF, for Bitcoin, it was an inflow yesterday, right? $75 million. Okay, in comparison to before, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for this week, it was actually all outflow. So yesterday was inflow. The day before, Tuesday, it was about 372 million outflow. All of them were outflow actually, apart from the 12th of November, which was last Wednesday, that it was an inflow. So essentially what we're seeing are retail people like you and me, whether we're buying from the exchange or buying through ETPs or ETF, it was all outflow, right? So that was Bitcoin ETF. And Ethereum ETF yesterday was also outflow, right? So the same for Ethereum. So if you're thinking of getting into Ethereum, think again, would this be the right time to enter? I highly question that. So it was an outflow of approximately 37 million yesterday, and the day before it was 74, and on the Monday it was 182 million, and then the last Friday it was 177 million and 259 million if outflow for last Thursday, right? So for the past 2 weeks, including this week, it was all outflow. And the only thing that seems positive in terms of ETF is the Solana ETF. From inception, I think it was the November the 3rd till now, it was actually all inflow as opposed to outflow. So yesterday, Solana's ETF was 48.5 million. The day before was 26.2 million inflow. Monday it was 8.2 million. For the past 2 weeks, it was all positive inflow. Okay, let's drive before I'm late. Okay, so why do I talk about Solana all of a sudden? Okay, obviously, FYI, that is actually one of my bag for my investment. Okay, certainly, it's not something that I want to bring into this channel immediately, because I kind of felt when I'm setting up my Compound Life, it's for someone normal, not normal, someone ordinary like myself, right? Where I don't really have huge amount of money for investment, but of course somehow I think I've made it, right? I've done it sufficient enough that I can comfortably get into a retirement age. Well, I hope so, because I've only just begun my journey, not long ago. And of course, I hope whatever I've invested will, really yield some good return for me right now. Okay. But anyway, so the reason that I'm taking into consideration for Solana, or bringing it into this channel, essentially is to highlight what are some of the available ETF or ETPs in our situation in the UK that are widely available, which, by the way, Solana ETP isn't available yet. However, it's available in the US. Okay, so what you can see ultimately will be there will be more and more ETNs or ETP or ETF available in our market, the UK market, right? Certainly these are things that should cause some excitement, because it does seem Bitcoin, crypto are getting much more mainstream, but at the same time I do have to cautious you guys, right, before you kind of jump into investing on Solana, Ethereum or Bitcoin. To me, my priority after all of my investment, right, I kind of felt the only things that really gotten me a lot further, right, apart from my properties, okay, which I don't think if you're a young person right now watching my video, right, I don't think you get much further with properties, because I've started that a lot more earlier than many of you guys, right? Or if you're someone in your mid 30s or 40s that are looking into making your first house your second investment properties, right? I still think there are some money that can be made. However, for the expectation to have a very, very good return in a very short period of time, I still felt Bitcoin and crypto. Let's just talk about Bitcoin here for now, right? No crypto, no shitcoin, just Bitcoin will still give us a very good substantial return in a very short period of time. And I need to highlight that Bitcoin, it's not going to be like a couple of years ago, like the first, second or third Bitcoin cycle. We are on the fourth cycle now. We're gonna get into the fifth cycle very soon, in about two years time, I believe. Okay, so very likely depends on when you kind of get into Bitcoin. Very likely, you need to hold or hodl, we call them, hold your Bitcoin for a good 4 years to 8 years time in order for you to see that return, right? Ordinary asset that you can buy, right, unless you kind of stock pick, where you somehow gotten into Nvidia or Tesla, or Amazon, which gives you a very, very substantial return, also within a few years' time. If you're one of them cautious investor, right, that maybe you kind of gotten into some ETF buying, right? You won't be able to see a huge return for at least a decade, right? That you need to compound that for a good decade. So that's why, it's quite important for us to have that balance of, some of our asset can really accelerate in a very short period of time. That would gives us good return that can help us to, at least for my case, help me to pay off more of my properties in a very short period of time, so that it's generating more income for me, right? The rental income, right? Okay, so that's something to highlight. But anyway, the reason that I'm bringing, Solana into conversation, or Ethereum into conversation, is because institution adoption on Bitcoin and crypto means Ethereum and Solana, it's for real, right? As you can see from the ETF, from the Solana perspective, it's, there are a lot more people buying, right? You can definitely see that from the inflow perspective. Okay, does it mean you have to get into Solana? Well, I would argue at the beginning of your journey, just focus on Bitcoin, right? Focus on Bitcoin only, because that's very important, right? That will gives you security, especially knowing that recently Bitcoin dropped from 126,000 onto 90 something thousand, right? What that really highlights, yes, it's still a highly volatile asset, but it's an asset that's being recognized, right? That's being recognized enough by, man, it's gonna be hard to find a space. Great. Recognize enough that eventually Bitcoin will be less volatile, like what's happening now, right? I don't have a car space. Maybe I'll just get the other one. Oops. Oh, that guy's going. Great. Let me get this space instead. Okay. Great. My lucky day. Because otherwise I would usually have to park somewhere quite far away from the gym. Okay, so one thing for sure, Bitcoin, crypto are getting much more recognized, right? And it's going into the mainstream finance, okay? I still truly believe, if you are in the UK, right, make sure whenever you go about in buying your Bitcoin or crypto, make sure you do so through your ISA, right? That's where you can buy, invest, and sometimes you might want to buy and sell every now and then, and that's not going to have detrimental tax effect on your account, right? Apart from that, I think it's also quite important that you make the full use of your allowance, right? So for now, I don't think Rachel Reeves has made any announcement yet. However, from the perspective of your tax-free allowances, it's still around £20,000, right? So try and maximize that if you do have that amount of money, right? It could be coming from your inheritance, from your company's bonus, from your saving, or whatever, right? So make sure you get into doing that. But at the same time, I still believe that holding raw Bitcoin, holding actual Bitcoin actually makes sense for a lot of others too, right? So once you kind of maximize on your allowance, and you still want to park your money somewhere, right? I think go into exchange, make purchase on your Bitcoin through an exchange. This gives you a lot more security. That number one, you get the mobility of taking your Bitcoin with you going somewhere else, right? So take for instance, if one day you might feel, I don't want to be in the UK anymore. Like I always tell myself, I don't want to be in the UK anymore. But for now, I think for the family's sake, it makes sense to stay. It gives you mobility. You can just take a Bitcoin. It's a little bit like carrying your gold, which is very heavy. You can just carry your Bitcoin, your seed phrases, and go somewhere else and depart, right? So some of that to take into consideration. Okay, before we conclude today's video, right? I just want to say, stay strong. Of course, there are negative and positivity in the market right now. I think a few bad things include Bitcoin death cross. Recently just crossed. That's when the lagging indicator, where it's a lagging indicator for sure, right? But always trend is your friend, right? You can definitely see 50 days moving average drops below the 200 days moving average trend. And we obviously Bitcoin drop below the 50 days moving average, and the next drop will very likely be the 200 days moving average, right? So that's something you need to look out for. When the trend is telling you, it's dropping, it's going down, it will continue to go down, right? Are we in the bear market or are we in the bull market? I don't know yet, right? But from the bad side perspective, it does seem maybe we might be going through a smallish bear market. Okay. I think a lot of this was due to the US government shutdown, the jobs report not coming out, although by today the jobs report will be coming out, but it will only come out with the September's figure as opposed to September and October's figure, which would gives Fed the indicator to make decision of whether to cut down the interest rate, right? So there's a lot of speculation in the market right now that there will not be a rate cut coming, a US rate cut, interest rate cut coming for December. So that's why the whole market are, investors, they are in turmoil, they are de-risking, they're selling off Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, all of the Tesla shares and so forth, right? But let's come to the good thing, right? Good thing, I think with the recent CME gap close for Bitcoin at 92,000, okay? That means we don't have much more gaps to close, right? So hopefully Bitcoin will move up, right? But at the same time, I think the big catalyst was from yesterday when Nvidia announced strong performance, where their earnings per shares were at $1.30, earning per share that beats expectation of $1.25. They reported a revenue growth, revenue of 57 billion that beats expectation of 54 billion. Immediately, right after the announcement, you can see Bitcoin pump a little bit, from 88,000 back to about 92, 93,000. Tesla shares immediately boost and even after trading hours, it kind of rebounds, right? There are other great things in the pipeline that I still felt might not immediately bring us into a crypto or Bitcoin winter, right? Essentially, would be the stimulus check. Companies are still buying. So the stimulus check would be the Trump's $2,000 stimulus check, right? Companies and countries are buying. Abu Dhabi mentioned that they're going to 3x their Bitcoin holding through IBIT, Bitcoin ETF. They're buying 2.7 million shares, from 2.7 million shares to about 8 million shares. So in Bitcoin terms, they'll be holding from 1,364 Bitcoin to 4,561 Bitcoin, right? So there are people that kind of see, you know what, 89,000, 90,000, below 100,000 Bitcoin, it's still a very fair price, right? So that's why people are still getting in to buy, okay? So if that's the case, it does seem it's not as bearish as how everything seemed, right? So why is Bitcoin still being suppressed, right? So I think Tom Lee, one of the analysts that came up yesterday on CNBC News, spoke a little bit about it. I think maybe it could just be a maybe that the 10/10 incidents, the October 10th incident, spooked the market a little bit, right? It's causing a lot of fear. And some of the market maker might be in losses, right? So that's why they're flushing out leverage long or short. For now, they're obviously flushing out leverage long in and out. So that's why it's causing the Bitcoin price to suppress, right? So on this video, I don't want to be just to talk about bull cases or bear cases for Bitcoin. Very likely we're gonna have to make our minds up by ourselves, right? I'm bullish as well as bearish, right? Take out all of the crypto or shitcoins for now, right? In terms of Bitcoin, I am bullish because of the fundamental of the adoption of whatever the hell is going on right now in the market, like the stimulus check, the rate cut and so forth. I'm definitely bullish on that. And that's why I'm bullish for my longer term hodl bag, right? The bag that I hold Bitcoin for the long term. But of course, I'm bearish, ultra bearish for my short term bag, which I was meant to sell off by, I think, early January-ish, mid-January, but before end of January, right? So I've made myself kind of DCA sell off approximately 1% or 1.75% at earlier state from October until about January. That's approximately 100 days. I'm kind of pound cost averaging out about 1% to 1.75% or 2% per day, pound cost averaging out, right? And I'm a little bit gutted because obviously, Bitcoin dropped to a state of 92,000 now, and I'm still de-risking. So I'm still telling myself, should I, de-risk less and wait for it to rebound back, wait for the relief rally, because there's a lot of talks about relief rally, right? So sometimes I am, de-risking on a daily basis. When it drops too much, I stop de-risking. I'll just wait, right? I'll wait for the relief rally. So in a way, what I'm telling you now is that's what you need to do, right? Have a long-term bag and a short-term bag. Short-term bag is a bag that you want to sell off, right? And then you de-risk, and then you constantly de-risk, take profit, right? So remember that, take profit, de-risk whenever you're in profit, whenever you're in good profit, right? Don't be the sucker that hold your bag into the bear market. Okay, so thanks for watching my video. Please hit the like, hit subscribe, and I'll do more of my sharing of what the hell I'm doing. Okay, see you soon.